Welcome to Lea County Pod. Our host tonight is Pete Milidnik. Pete, would you please go ahead and introduce our guest?
Thank you, Jack. We are with Jon Gilcrease, who is the principal of Houston Middle School, and we look forward to talking with Jon about life and education. And to begin with, I'll simply ask the fundamental question, Jon, who is Jon Gilcrease?
Well, Jon Gilcrease was a person that was born and raised in Hobbs. I've been here all my life. In fact, I went to school here, Broadmoor Elementary, went for a couple grades, kindergarten and first, then went over to Jefferson Elementary, and then Heiser Middle School, and then graduated from Hobbs High School in 1991. And also I've also taught. All of my teaching career has been here as well in Hobbs as well. So I've taught and been an administrator, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I've also attended college here, New Mexico Junior College, and at that time College of the Southwest, now at the University of the Southwest. But some of the highlights of my career that I've had here in Hobbs, I did play for the legendary Coach Tasker in 1991. Was a basketball player for him. Played under him, who at one time was the winningest coach in the United States. Again, like I said, I was able to right out of high school, was able to go to New Mexico Junior College and receive my associates in science there. And after that, I was able to attend CSW and was able to get my bachelor's of science there with emphasis in teaching. And then I was also able to get my master's degree at CSW as well in administration. So I've been an educator for 29 years, all here in Hobbs, never left. 17 of the 29 have been in the classroom, and 12 years have been in administration. Two of the years, whenever I started as an assistant principal at Houston Middle School, I actually taught I taught high school. I taught calculus AB and BC at the high school, as well as I was an assistant principal. So I would leave for part of the day and go over there and teach a class, and then I would come back and do my administrative duties at Houston Middle School. That was my first 2 years at Houston Middle School. So I did both. I did double duties there as well. My first 4 years I taught at Houston Middle School, and then several years later I was able to return back as the administrator, which was pretty neat. At that time, as I was telling you earlier, Houston was junior high when I first started out. It was junior high. It was 7 through 9, and taught there 4 years, and then I went up to the high school and taught up there for 13 years. While I was at the high school, I taught all math courses you could think of. Probably the only one I didn't teach was probably statistics. I didn't teach that, but some of my best years teaching calculus AB, which calculus AB is like calculus 1, and equivalent to it, you do calculus 1 over a year at the high school. I had my best passing rate was 83% of my students passed the AP calculus exam in calculus AB. When I was able to teach calculus BC, which is equivalent to calculus 1 and 2, I was able to, while being an administrator, I was able to have a 100% passing rate in doing that. So all my students were able to pass the AP exam. I've also been a grader for College Board. I used to go in the summer for about 5 summers in a row. I would go and grade calculus exams, and during the summertime, a 7-day process in which we would go and grade calculus exams from all over the United States, and I'd be able to bring that knowledge back and be able to apply it to my classroom as well. And I was also an advanced placement lead before I was an assistant principal for grades 7 through 12. So I would go into the classrooms and junior high, freshman, high school, and I would help teachers with their classes.
When you were taking math classes at the junior college, did you ever have Dr. Scotty Klein?
Yes, I did. I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the things I was going to tell about at my time, which I'm okay skipping forward to that. I did have Dr. Scotty Klein, was an awesome math professor who made learning math so easy, and he could explain it to you in so many different ways. Having his own PhD, was able to break it down to where you could actually understand that. I had him. I had Mr. Martin. He was also a math professor there at the college. I also had another math teacher there. I just went blank for a second, but I also had Mr. Will Rohn. He was also a math teacher there. Those three guys were very exceptional math professors who I really enjoyed taking all my math classes from them. They were part of the reason that I did choose to go as a math teacher and go on and pursue that at CSW and continue start my career out being a math teacher. They were really instrumental.
As opposed to English.
And we're going to talk about you here in a little bit.
Words and numbers, apples and oranges.
Exactly.
Scotty Klein, he was certainly a good friend of mine and an extraordinary human being. And I had heard from people that said, he could have, people told me he was a genius. I believed it.
Yeah. One funny story. Yeah, one funny story about him is back whenever the graphing calculators were starting to really come out, and I remember I had bought me a Casio. It did everything. I mean, everything you could think of as far as mathematics on it. And I bought it, and I went to him and I showed him my calculator, and he looked at the calculator and he goes, "I can't do all that technology." And he pulled out his, and it was the funniest looking calculator I'd ever seen. But he could do probably everything that I could do on my calculator. He could do it on his, but it had all these, he had to punch all these numbers in to get it, to work like it would on mine. But it was truly amazing that he just, like I said, just had a way. His jokes, he always had funny jokes in class. Talked about whenever he was at UCLA. He even mentioned that he was there at a time whenever they didn't have drive-by shootings. They never even heard of a drive-by shooting. Even back when he said I used to have hair, that was his funny joke that he used every day. So he was really an amazing person, professor, and everything. I just loved his classes.
As a student, did you take any online classes? You might have been too early for
those. Back in my time, we didn't really have too many options for online courses back then. It was all in person pretty much.
Well, the only thing that I remember is that this is at the JC, they had an outreach from ENMU, and I went through that.
Yes, sir.
And that counted for online, because back then all you had in '91 was dial-up.
Yep.
That's all you had.
That's all you had, exactly.
And one of the people you mentioned, Will Rohn, went on to teach at, I think it might have still been CSW then, for a good number of years after his career at NMJC.
One thing about him, he also coached at the time at the New Mexico Junior College of, I believe, baseball at that time. Mm-hmm. Okay. He was an interesting professor. The way his teaching methodologies were that he would work a problem, but then I never seen this done before, it was pretty interesting. Then he would work it the wrong way to show you how you could actually work a problem the wrong way. And some people are confused, but for me it actually made the mathematics more clear, gave you a clear picture of what mistakes you could make. That was a pretty interesting way to do it. I'd never seen that done before.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, John, while we're talking about you individually, what about your extracurricular interests, hobbies or activities outside of work?
Yeah, for me, like I said, I'm more, like I said, I like sports. That I like that. Really, I'm really into religion quite a bit. I really study the Bible a lot, and I devote most of the time every day to studying the Bible and reading the Bible and and that's really my hobbies as far as myself goes. That is one thing that has been an influence on my life is, I try to live those principles of Jesus, in my life, and the principles that I try to live, or being that servant to others. I really have incorporated that into my own life. In my job, it's really fit well into being a teacher and an administrator. Being a servant to others, you have to be able to be that if you're going to be able to be successful in your profession. If you're not, you're probably not going to make an impact, and probably not be able to make many changes if you're not.
Do you belong to any particular church?
Yeah, I belong to the General Assembly and Church of Firstborn.
Okay.
Don't know if y'all have ever heard of that, but
No, I haven't.
haven't heard that one. Now, when we started out, that's one thing that I would say the influence of my life was my dad always, when I was a very young child, prior to him having me as a son and my mom, he didn't go to church, but he started going whenever I was a young kid, and started taking me to different churches. We went to a lot of different churches, Baptist churches and different things. And so I can always remember that as being an influence of my life, always being in church and always going. And like I said, I've been able to apply that to my life these days. And also not only has religion and Jesus been, an influence, but also my coaches, my teachers and professors. They've always been my next biggest influence in my life. I remember Coach Tasker, he had a lot of life lessons that he taught us, always about giving your 110%. People say, well, how do you give your 110%? And I use the example of, well, you'd be at practice or whatever, you'd go through the practice, you'd give your 100% in practice, and then it was kind of ingrained in us to go home and keep on practicing, keep on working at our skill. And so I've been able to utilize that in my profession today, that I remember that, giving my 110%. And then also another saying he had that I apply to my life is about taking care of the details. The details will take care of the scoreboard. If you take care of each day in your life, you take care of those little things, they take care of the big things in your life. So I've been able to apply those, and also, given the opportunity, I want to speak about some of my professors there at the junior college, you being one of those. And so all the professors that I had at New Mexico Junior College were outstanding. I can't even compare them to what I had growing up, teachers and everything. You guys were outstanding. I want to say that. Your class, Mr. Mladnick, made a big impact on my life. And the reason why is all the professors made such an impact on my life is that you guys were not only just teachers in the classroom, but you were actually doing things outside of the classroom. And what I mean by that is you were writing stories or poems or different things that you were actually doing that made an impact on my life. And so you could actually bring the application back in to the classroom, and you could show us how to write a grammatically correct sentence, or how to be creative in your writing. You could do that because you were doing it. You could do that. I think about Linda Davison, the counselor there. She made an impact on me. Was in a wheelchair, not able to get around, but was able. She applied those principles in her life. She was there. She cared for the students. She tried to make an impact. She helped me get started in my career towards teaching. You mentioned Dr. Scotty Klein, Will Rohn, Griff Henson. Remember him, Mr. Henson? Outstanding history professor. He had developed his own, he had his own textbook, study guide, videos, and basically if you followed his system, you would not fail his class. It was amazing, the system that he had spent all of his time doing that. Mr. Ron Black, I think of Mr. Black all the time. He would teach us about, I remember taking New Mexico history. We would be learning about New Mexico history. He could tell you about New Mexico history because he had been to all the locations that he was telling you about, which is truly amazing to me. Dr. Mickey Best, I think about him, amazing professor. as far as learning how to communicate with people. He would have us apply those strategies in his classroom. We would learn how to effectively communicate. You taught us how to write. He taught us how to speak, and he could use all the real world situations in order to do that. I think about Joe Garcia, the late Joe Garcia. He taught me how to build the relationships with people. He built that was his main goal was he cared about the content, but he cared more about building that relationship with you. And you wanted to learn in his class, and you enjoyed it. You did learn because he built that friendship. He was always something you could someone you could always talk to. Dr. Vic Berner, think about him, an amazing chemistry teacher. You would go buy the textbook. You didn't even really need the textbook. He had his own system, own notes that he taught you from. That you went in every day and you learned. You learn more from his notes than you did from a textbook. You try to go read the textbook, chemistry textbook, like, man, I don't understand the chemistry textbook, but I understand his. And he had some of the most challenging multiple choice tests I'd ever taken. They were very, very tough. I talked about Gerald Martin, math professor, Dr. Lathrop, or Mr. Lathrop, economics. He was amazing as far as economics went. He could really explain economics in a sense that made it easy, but he also had some challenging multiple choice tests as well. And then finally, Dr. McCleary. I think about Dr. McCleary a lot. I know he's still out there, I guess, helping, trying to continue that success that they had out there at that time. I think he was the Dean of Arts and Sciences, maybe at the time I was out there, but I remember him specifically. He made an effort to go and know your name and to learn all about you and always check up on you everywhere he saw you around the campus. So that doesn't describe everyone that was out there, but that was the few that really made an impact, and I really thank you for making an impact.
I appreciate that, John, very much.
Yeah, and like I said, I look at how all of you guys, you were doing more than just teaching. You were showing us how to apply showing us how to apply what we were learning. And so I really attribute a lot of my success to that.
I would imagine your dad too on his
Yes.
end. He
Yeah.
and I were in different disciplines, but he was certainly one of my influences while working at NMJC.
Well, that's
and I
cool.
would imagine he applied those same principles in his
Yep.
teaching
Yep.
too.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Dad is my dad had a couple years of college, associates. He went junior college, New Mexico Junior College, and he went into the private sector and become a mechanic, for at least 20 years. And then I was already teaching, and he decided, health reason why, that he couldn't really do it anymore. It was hard on his body, starting to wear him down. So he decided to teach, and they gave him he found the opportunity out at the New Mexico Junior College to be a high school teacher. That's how he started out.
He had a little bit of a reputation. He'd retire and then he'd come back, but I know they wanted him back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's one of my influences that has that teaching in him. He excelled at what he did, and then he became the automotive professor in the GM program. And my dad took all of the training that GM could offer, and they considered him to have like a PhD in automotive technology.
Sure.
Because of all the courses that he took. And like you said, he worked, then he retired, sat out a year, and then he came back for a little bit as well. And so it's pretty interesting that's where my career started as far as what catapulted me to teaching, and then he ended up out there too as well. So NMJC has really impacted our lives in our family.
Really, there was probably a time when Steve McCleary was my dean, but when I first started in 1990, Gerald Martin was my dean, and he was such a great guy.
Yep.
I mean, I could not have had a better introduction at New Mexico Junior College. And then for a good number of years, Mickey Best was my dean too.
Yeah, Gerald Martin, I remember one thing that he said about, I took calculus with him, calculus 1 and 2. I remember he saying in our class that all the students that we had like engineers, teachers, students that were in business and all kinds of going into different fields. And he said that, we were the best class that he ever had in calculus. And back then, we took the class 5 days a week. You went every day. It was from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock for 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And he said, I would put your class up against any college in the nation. He told us he really thought that much of all of the students in there that were in there, and then going into the different fields of how intelligent the students were in there that he had, that really made it enjoyable for him to teach that class.
Yeah, and he was a good administrator as well.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Ron Black.
Yep.
When I first came to New Mexico from northern Louisiana, I hadn't been anywhere near here before I came for a job interview,
Yep.
but my first semester, right at the end of it, Ron Black approached me about driving a van for his, it was a New Mexico history course where you traveled around the state.
Yep.
And it's one of the greatest experiences of my life. And
Yep.
what Ron knew was amazing.
Yeah, he is. And like I said, being able to coach the men's program out there, and then also teach, he gave everything he had into both programs. He didn't let his teaching slide, because he was the coach, for the team. He gave his 110% on both.
And went on to be an NMJC board member.
Yes,
too.
sir.
I'm not sure if he's still, he might have had some,
Yeah.
I know he moved and there might have been something where he had to get off the board, but
Yes, sir.
for a good number of years he was part of the NMJC board.
Right, exactly. So just, like I said, just outstanding professors. I can't say enough. I mean, words won't even describe how you guys truly impacted my life, and once in a lifetime. Like I said, I know there's been some great professors out there, and there probably still is out there, but I feel like I was fortunate enough to be around some of the greatest professors that NMJC has had.
Well, yeah, that certainly is a good to hear.
Yes, sir.
And as an educator yourself,
Mm-hmm.
John, would you want to say anything more about the importance of NMJC
Sure.
to our Lee community?
Yeah, I think that NMJC is so important to our town and Lee County. It's so important because it's a community-based place, in my opinion. You have traditional and non-traditional students that are out there. It meets the needs of whatever you are trying to go into. The pricing of the college itself is so reasonable. You can go there and work on your degree and prepare yourself for the next level without having to incur a lot of debt. I remember several of classmates of mine that I went out there to the junior college, and they went off to another college. And then I remember like a semester later that they were back, and I was like, hey, what are you doing back? And they didn't make it. And the New Mexico Junior College gives you those foundational skills, and it builds those in order to prepare you for the next 4-year college. Like I said, outstanding faculty and staff, and you learn the standards. In fact, my son's going out there now. He graduated. He's going out to the New Mexico Junior College. But you learn those standards at the highest level, and more importantly, what I learned is life lessons that are way more important that you can apply in your job, and be successful in it, And so it's not just knowledge. It's not just knowledge. You got to have more than that in order to be successful in whatever it is you choose to do. So New Mexico Junior College is a great place for anyone to attend, regardless of your age or whatever you want to do. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, and like so many places, ever changing, just as technology is ever changing.
Yes.
New Mexico Junior College is too.
Right.
And Lee County as a whole.
Yep.
With that in mind,
Yep.
well, what do you notice? Do you want to discuss any changes in the high school, elementary schools
Sure.
here?
Yeah, Hobbs is really growing, you know, and our Hobbs Municipal Schools are doing a great job of keeping up with that growth. You know, they've been able to build the CTech building, Career Technology, which I think is wonderful. They're at the high school where used to we tried to push everybody into going to college, and as you guys are all aware, just trying to find a plumber or electrician or whatever it might be, it's hard to find them.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's going to help meet the demands that as our town, city continues to grow, we are training students to be able to go out and fill those jobs if they decide not to go to college. There's those jobs, high-paying jobs that they can step into, and it meets the demands. Also, with the growth in our city, we are building a new middle school that's going to open in fall of 2027. It'll be off of Millen there, kind of in the area behind Walmart, where the Stewart homes are, right behind there. It's going to be that right in there. They're going to build a new middle school, and being with the growth, like Houston Middle School, we're like at about 830 kids. Highlands, right around Highland Middle School, is about the same. And then you also have Heiser, but they're in the stages now of getting ready to break ground, if they hadn't already, to be able to begin building that middle school out there. So Hobbs Municipal Schools, under the direction of Mr. Gene Strickland, is doing a wonderful job of having strategic thinking ahead of what do we need, and then also at the same time, whenever they break ground on the new middle school out there, then they're also going to begin building a new middle school for Heiser Middle School on the south side. So they're also going to be receiving they'll start it probably within 3 to 6 months. They'll also break ground in it. So we're really going to have two middle schools going on, being built at about the same time. Heiser will continue to stay in their school and go attend classes until it's open, and then they'll tear it down, kind of like they've done with some of the elementaries as well. So, and then they're looking at strategically thinking long term. Then they're looking at eventually Houston and Highland also being rebuilt as they're getting older. And you know, I think last I heard, I think Houston is 70, 80 years old. So it's eventually going to need to be rebuilt as well, a new school. So in Highland as well. So don't know what order that'll go into, but those are some things that we are seeing in Hobbs, and it will benefit. You know, the Career Tech Center, it benefits Lea County because they also send students over there from Eunice and Jal and different places that also attend there. They can go and learn different trades, oil field, and different things as well. So great opportunities there for not only students in Hobbs, but also Lea County as well.
And you know, from what you've been saying, I'm realizing the importance of education for the prosperity of any community.
Yes.
Too. How a place like NMJC isn't just the campus itself, but it extends out to the whole county.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And then they offer those opportunities as well. I know they kind of share different opportunities. You know, the automotive we talked about earlier, that reaches out to all the students across, you know. But like I said, I think New Mexico Junior College and Hobbs Municipal Schools and CSW and all them work together well, and the city of Hobbs, they work together well to address these problems that we see here in our county with the growth as much as it is, and housing boom and all that. They work well together to come up with strategies to meet that need that we have. So so it's a Hobbs, like I said, been here all my life, wouldn't trade it for anything. I love Hobbs, love the people of Hobbs. I believe all the people of Hobbs are down to earth, and it's like a big family community, kind of like the junior college was whenever I attended it.
It's really a good place to be. I mean, yep. Nobody has a crystal ball, but I remember when I came out here in the spring of 1990, I never would have dreamed I'd spend 30 years at New Mexico Junior College, and and even more than that, as a citizen here, and I'm very happy. And Jack, you've been here pretty much for
All your life. That's awesome.
And
Isn't it something?
You went to college when it was College of the Southwest.
Same as myself. That's awesome.
I graduated in '85.
Okay,
So
awesome.
we're like 6 years
6
apart.
years difference, yeah. 91 for me, and
So I assume that you were, Joan Tucker was president when you
yes,
were out there.
yes, yeah. I mean, Joan Tucker was. Her and Dr. McCleary were a lot alike. I was really fortunate to be able to have both of those as presidents of CSW, and then and then of course at that time he was dean of students. But just amazing people that they cared about you as an individual, not just about the dollars that you brought to their college, but they actually cared. They knew about you. They knew, like I said, Dr. McCleary and Joan Tucker, they knew about you and they knew about your family. It was like, wow, they went out and researched it and and they would ask about your family. How's your mom and dad? And how are they doing? And how are you doing? Is there anything we can do? That personal relationship, as I said, as all my professors had, they also had that as well, and just made the opportunity I had such. I'm so glad. I know a lot of people are like, I just want to get out of Hobbs and go to another college in another state, but I'm thankful that I stayed where I was because of I'm where I'm at today because of those people that made an impact in my life.
Do you think you'll stay at Houston for a while, or?
I'm on year 29, and next year will be year 30. So I'm beginning to think about my long-term goals, what they are. So I'm beginning to think about when will be my time to exit out, out of there, and maybe, I don't know, retire. The state has where you can sit out 3 months and then you can retire and come back and then you can work another 3 years. So I'm kind of contemplating looking at that down the line as being able to maybe start my retirement and then maybe come back. I don't know, maybe do something different,
Come back as a teacher?
Come back as a teacher, something different, maybe that I haven't done, so looking at different things there that I kind of considering, for, as like I said, I haven't made a decision fully yet, but just been kind of tossing around different things.
Yeah, well, see, I retired when the COVID just came upon us. It was very strange, and kind of bittersweet. And all of a sudden, I was used to being around a lot of people every day, and all of a sudden, you had that isolation.
Yeah, it was quite different. Going through that experience was really different. You were more like what would you call it, a tech person. Whenever we did it, we were like at the office, students were online and we were on office, solving technical issues. That's kind of the way. It wasn't really like you were a principal, you were just sitting at your desk all day long. So it was a different time that in administration that I've never experienced in my lifetime.
I really value my memories now of the physical classroom,
Yes.
and you
Right.
you were with me there,
Yes,
and I have vivid memories of the televisions on their high TV stands. One time, in a heavily trafficked hallway, one of them tipped over, and for some miraculous reason, it didn't break or anything, but it tipped over, fell off the stand. I have a memory of that, but repeatedly of taking a TV in or out of the classroom.
Right.
Back then, and then they got the big screens, and then the podiums. We've seen all the changes. I never would have guessed that I would be doing so much writing with my notepad app on my phone now. But it is what it is, and I like to not rule out the pen and paper either.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you can't replace the teacher in front of the student or the professor in front of the student. It's so important that they have that. I know there's so much technology, like you said now, AI and different things, but ultimately in the long run or in the end game, you got to have that. You got to have that teacher. The teacher makes the biggest impact, I believe, from being able to see both sides of it. Learning from a software program, students did not do well with that, and so the teacher is the biggest key
See,
to that.
my lesson was probably about the last 3 weeks of classes. We couldn't go on the campus. You
Yep.
had to teach remotely.
Yep.
And it was such a major change. It
Yep.
was really dull.
Yep.
You know, I didn't have to be, I was very used to having to be, at 9 a.m. in this particular classroom
Right.
and 10 a.m. and
Yep.
I really missed that in my last weeks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree. We all did. We all missed it. It was not. Yeah, there was a lot of people, I think, during that time that got out of education for those reasons. Because they got into it because they that's what they enjoyed, was being in front of the students and making that impact. And there were quite a few that got out because of that. Not saying you did, but I'm just saying that you were hitting at that time of your retirement. But,
Yeah.
But like there were a lot that did retire because that just wasn't for them, and I understand why. It makes sense.
Yeah, and for me it was just I had planned to do 30 years and then retire,
Yep.
but I had hoped to spend the remaining days in the
Yes,
classroom. But
Yes, sir.
I mean, you are an alumni of NMJC, and I am a professor emeritus. We're
Yes.
still a vital part of that college.
Yes.
And I think of, like, when you were there, Ray Birmingham was
Yep.
there
Yep.
with baseball. and
Sure was.
What he did with that baseball program was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the nursing
Yep.
program, now they've got a whole
Yeah.
separate, up-to-date building,
Yeah.
which was just not there when
No.
I started.
I think it was more in the Heidel Hall was in that
Yes.
area. All the nursing
Yeah.
was in there because math, they would be in there when I took a lot of my math class, science classes in there as well. Yeah, so that's awesome that they have that now.
In the career technology part, I don't know if they have anything with plumbing, but gosh, they ought to.
Yep,
if
they do.
don't, yeah.
They got plumbing, electric,
Heating,
heating,
and
all
air.
that stuff. Yeah, oil field, automotive. They have it all, and students are able to get their certifications and be certified. And like I said, we're also trying to figure out in the whole equation, how do we grow our own teachers too as well. The high school's also working on that, working on a plan of can we get, because we're having a hard time finding teachers, so we're trying to figure out a way that we can grow our own and keep them here and fill that void that we have of we're not able, the teachers are not, we're not able to find them.
And Jack, your son-in-law, does he does
Yeah, my
coaching? And,
my son-in-law, he Taylor Homestead, he's at Heiser.
Okay.
He helps out with the SPED program,
Yes.
and he's also one of the football coaches out there.
Awesome. That's great.
So I sort of have a question here.
Yes.
You have your experience. You went through the Hop schools.
Yes.
You have a certain particular experience growing up here,
Right.
going through those schools.
Right.
No, for example, you were under Tasker.
Yep.
I had government with Tasker.
Yes.
Okay. How would you compare, contrast your experience as a student versus the students today? What do you see today that kids need today?
Yeah. It looks like today that, in comparison to what us, back then we learned a lot of skills and different things. Take math, for example. You had the drill and keel and things like that. Now a student has to be able to do a lot more with the mathematics. They have to be able to really apply it. Not saying that they didn't back then, but it seems like today that students are, in our world, changing so much with technology that you're trying to equip them to understand how to apply the information, but use everything out there that they have at their fingertips. It's quite different than the education that we had, you know, just learning from a textbook or whatever. They have so many different things at their fingertips, so many different programs, so many different things that they can utilize, that it's quite different. The requirement, you know, to be able to learn and to adapt to this world, the information that you have, it's coming at you so much, so many changing all the time with the technology, like we talked about earlier. Being able to utilize that technology, being able to apply it. You know, like I said, all of our students have a laptop now. They in their classes. You know, we didn't have a laptop; we had a textbook. There's pros and cons to that. Like you said, sometimes I think that the paper and pencil, in some instances, are better, and then sometimes the laptop can be a hindrance if it's not used correctly or in the right instance. It can hinder them in their learning. So I think that, like I said, there's a lot more technologies, a lot more ways to get information at your fingertips, whereas us, you had to research, you had to do a lot more digging to find all the information, whereas they have it at their fingertips. And that's the challenge of education. I think these AI programs are good if we can utilize them to the benefit of differentiating students. I think if we can use that AI, artificial intelligence, to help, we have all these different students at different levels. If we can utilize that AI to help bring their level up, I think it's good. But if we don't, we could go the other way, where it could be a hindrance to the student and then they miss out. Like with us, we had that foundational skills and knowledge that we were given to be able to apply what we had. But if we're not careful, you know, I can see it going that way. But I see the big benefits to it, to technology and artificial intelligence. But I think that's the difference today in the way we learned and the way the students are learning today. It's totally different, you know. And so that's the way I see it, what I've seen in comparison.
You know, Beck, you were my student long ago enough that I'd never had this situation, but as the years went by at NMJC, there was always a battle with getting students to put their cell phones away.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The cell phones might have just been in the infant stages when you and I were together.
I don't even think I had one then.
Me neither. Yeah.
Just use the phone at home.
But they can be a benefit. You know,
Yes,
they can be either friend or foe in the classroom.
And I think that's what we're up against. You know, and so we're trying to get back to that. Like I said earlier, too, to answer your question, when I first started teaching, you saw teachers that had been in the system for 25 to 30 years, kind of like New Mexico Junior College. You had seen professors that had been in it for a long time, like you mentioned Coach Tasker. So nowadays, with the shortage of teachers, you're seeing teachers that come and go, transient throughout. That's also a difference. The kids don't have that we had. Whenever we had teachers that had been in this community for a long time and were vested in it. But nowadays, you with the openings and different things that you have, you don't have that necessarily. We're trying to build that to where we'll get teachers to stay and to stay here in our community and be vested in that, so that we can build what we used to have. So that's a challenge that we have that we didn't have back then when we were in school.
Well, I know retention is certainly something they focus on at New Mexico Junior College too, and in other areas of public service.
Sure.
In Hobbs, probably in the other Lea County towns.
Yep.
Do you have anything else, Jack,
No, I
that you
don't.
would like to add? Well, John, we'll bring it to a close for now.
All right.
With Jon Gilcrease, principal of Houston Middle School. We sure appreciate your talking with us, John, and look forward to a good school year for you.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great evening.